My family bloodline was saved by a horse. This story was told to me by my dad, and it's about my grandfather when he was just a baby. I read through this subreddit and thought this story would be fun since everyone I tell it to is always in shock. So my family are of Armenian descent and both my parents are immigrants. The story involves my dad's side of the family. My great-grandfather was born in Armenia not long after the Armenian genocide. Fast forward a few decades and my great-grandfather was married to his wife, my great-grandmother, and was starting to make a family. During this time many Armenians were being deported to Siberia under the orders of Stalin. Armenia at the time was part of the Soviet Union and did not have its independence. Unfortunately, my great-grandfather's family was among the group that got deported. Life there wasn't necessarily bad for my great-grandfather's family, but being forced out of your home country for any reason is a sad situation. Because of the deportation of his family, my grandpa was born in Siberia. Of course, my grandpa's family getting deported caused many issues, but the main one was not seeing loved ones back home as often. However, my great-grandfather made sure to visit every year for Christmas and the New Year. My great-grandfather and his family, including my grandpa as a newborn, made the trip from Siberia to Armenia in a sled that was pulled by their horse. Yes, the horse finally makes his entrance. Now my family is not 100% sure if they went the whole way from Siberia to Armenia, 4,000 kilometers, this way, but considering they weren't that wealthy there's no possibility that a faster form of transportation was used. Traversing the land of Siberia in the winter was no easy task. Lots of supplies had to be carried with them for them to survive parts of the trip with no nearby cities. My great-grandfather was at the front of the sled and my great-grandmother was at the back with their newborn and the supplies. The weather starts to pick up and it begins to snow very hard. The sled is bumping on rocks and ice when suddenly the horse just stops in place. My great-grandfather was very confused and scared at this point. He started yelling and slapping the horse to try and get it to move, but nothing was working. After a while, he gives up and decides to walk. It was either that or staying there and freezing to death. They begin to grab their things and realize that their son, my grandpa, is nowhere on the sled. They start to panic and look around. They look maybe 10 feet back and see my grandpa sitting in the snow. He fell off the sled when the road got bumpy and no one noticed. They picked up my grandpa off the snow and returned to the sled. Then and only then, the horse begins to move again. This horse noticed my grandpa falling off the sled in the very loud snowstorm weather. If that horse hadn't stopped, my newborn grandpa would have frozen to death in the snow. Meaning that neither my dad nor I would have been born. Therefore, this horse saved my entire family's bloodline and future. It's a long story, but I think it's a story that deserves telling. Of course, some people hearing this story have their doubts, but either way, it's a great icebreaker for meeting new people. LOL.